got to be valuable to me as a commercial cattle producer. So I think that's really the big thing. Today, it's not going to replace progeny testing and make a sire a .9 accuracy. Okay, we're not there yet. I hope we're there very soon, but we're not certainly yet. But that's where we want to go with this, and I think that's ultimately one of the pieces. And I'll show you a few results that we've now had a chance to look at as how, in terms of how animals have changed here with implementation into the national cattle evaluation. The second thing, and I think you as cattle producers here in the U.S. have to be mindful of this. We are in a very global, competitive agriculture economy. Here in the U.S., we're competing for the same feedstuffs as poultry, pork, other ag sources, and they're very expensive, as we all know. They just got a lot more expensive this year. Fortunately, I've gotten to travel in some other parts of the world. Some of these parts of the world, they're also our competition. They can have some competitive advantage in some aspects that we can. And I think as technology adopters, we need to at least think really hard about some of these tools we have access to and realize our competition is doing the same thing. So with that aspect, as I heard Bill Bowman's comment in the video tonight, one of the things that this can do, just like genetic improvement is doing now if you look at genetic trends within the American Angus Association, is it can actually change the slope of that genetic trend for a population over time. I do fundamentally believe that. So I think those are the two things. With that, I'd kind of like to move in just a handful of slides, and Mark asked if keep the comments to just a few minutes, and I'll do that and later answer as many questions as best as I can. This is really a variation of a slide that Sally had up just a few moments ago. And it really outlines the various sources of information and where we're at today with utilization of the information. I think ultimately, we want to get the genomic predictions or the genomic contribution into a common currency, and that common currency is the EPD. And as I said earlier, these genomic predictions, ultimately what we want to have them provide to us is a higher accuracy value much earlier in the animal's life, and that reflects the savings of time, money, and opportunity cost. This Angus HD50K, the product that I'm referring to, what's so special about it? If we look in livestock genetic improvement today, whether we're looking in poultry, whether we're looking in swine, dairy, and I'm going to share just a little bit of dairy information with you, or we look in cattle. Kind of the gold standard, if you look at the amount of density we need to make really some significant genetic progress, is anywhere in this 50 to 60,000 SNP penetration of an animal genome. So this chip, this hardware that's been used to train Angus data, is a 50,000K Illumina SNP chip. Got about 54,000 different genotypes scattered across the genome. Okay? That is important because as we look across other species that are making progress in this arena, that's really kind of that penetration across the genome that's needed to at least begin to make some really very significant progress. And that, from a background perspective, is the baseline of this technology. We can talk some more about that here in a bit. So just a brief background. I think most of you know this. What are the traits that are provided from the HD50K genetic product? They're listed here. I think probably most of those are fairly legible. And those traits, most of them in some way, form, or fashion, currently or as of next Friday, will go into the National Cattle Evaluation. Augmenting those EPDs, if you have tested and you log into your AAA member website, you also see a percentile ranking for each of those traits. That simply just gives you an idea against all the cattle that have been tested, where do those animals rank. But I'd still come back and tell you that ultimately the most important information is going to be the information that gets imported and pushed into the National Cattle Evaluation. Okay, I'm going to leave this slide up for a couple of minutes because it's interesting. One of the questions, I get really two questions, and the first one is, well, hey, how does this impact accuracy? But the bigger one I get more often is, if I test an animal, okay, a non-parent young animal, could be a calf, could be a 10-month-old bull, how much is this going to change the numbers for me? And I think this slide, we picked out one trait. This is what I call a before and after, okay? This is, and thanks to Bill and Sally for assisting us with pulling some before and after data so that we can begin to learn how this technology is impacting change in genetic evaluation. So what we have on this accuracy going across from 0 up to 0.6 on the right-hand side, okay? So these are accuracies out of the Angus Genetic Evaluation. We have the change in EPD here, okay? This is marbling EPD. This is before and after. So an animal had a genetic evaluation, had a marbling EPD before, had an HD50K test, and then this is how it impacted those changes over animals that have been tested. So what we're doing is we're going from very low accuracy animals all the way over to more moderate accuracy animals based on their first proof. Test was utilized, imported into the genetic evaluation run, results back out. So a couple of things here that make sense with the technology. Again, this is marbling EPD. Notice one thing, they don't all go up. About half of them go up, about half of them go down. Okay? So they're not going to all be great. And we see that with every one of the traits. Makes a lot of sense. No different than when progeny data comes in. We see the same type of phenomenon. The other thing that we see is, as we really get out here past this 0.3, and those of you that monitor performance data very closely will recognize that as moving away from having maybe a scan record on out to some offspring data. We see those changes really get minimized. Okay? I'm going to tell you, testing a high accuracy bull, you won't see any change. Okay? These progeny proven, the added value of utilizing the test, genomic information is going to be very minimal. Okay? Because he's already proven. He's becoming more and more proven. Where the value is, and where you see the big changers, are back in here where the information younger in that animal's life is much more limited. So what we know about genetic improvement, what we know about the technology, makes perfect sense. You see a handful that are actually pretty big changes, but you see a lot of, I mean, this is a minus 0.2 to 0.2 captures most of these, so 0.4 marbling score kind of change, okay? We've generated this for the other traits. I don't have them here tonight, but in fact, we just pulled this together yesterday. We've generated it for the other traits and be happy to share that. They all look, you see the same sort of scatter across as you go from low to high accuracy. So that's one aspect, and as we move into birth, weaning, milk, and yearling, we'll do the same thing. I'm going to share another bit of information. This is something we've actually pulled a few weeks back, and I need to recognize and thank Select Sires and also Accelerated Genetics, for providing us as a similar type and piece of information on, these are actually moderate accuracy bulls that we actually HD50K tested. And so we had the before and after on these bulls as well. So today they're very moderately proven bulls, moderate to what I'd call high accuracy bulls. It's not a large sample, I'm here to tell you, but I think it's a unbiased sample. And actually, even though it's 60 AI sires, it does represent quite a bit of progeny records. Okay, you can see the text across the slide. 68,000 total progeny. I've just got one trait for you. Going backwards now, to look at. I'm going to use a statistic to describe how this technology performs. An R-squared, basically all I'm going to do is to give you a number, and it's going to tell you what percentage of the variation in that trait, actually the trait EPD, does the genetic prediction or the genomic prediction account for. How robust is it? So we'll use this number. A number closer to 100 would be perfect, and one at 0 would account for none of the variation. We'll spend just a couple minutes on this slide as well. This is weaning weight direct. Okay, so this is. Be sure I explain this correctly. There's actually 62 bulls. On this axis is their molecular value prediction. This is the prediction from the 50K chip based only on the genomic information. goes from 0 to 70. That would be the genomic prediction for weaning weight direct only. No other information went in this. No progeny information, none of the animal's own records, totally by itself. These sires were not used in training and development of the product either. Okay, so it's an independent sample. On this axis is their actual progeny-proven EPD without the genomic information included in it either. Okay? Couple of things that I think are really nice about this that caught my attention. One, clearly, the data fits very nicely and closely to a line. Okay? That's a good thing. Okay? It counts for almost 3/4 of the variation in the progeny-proven EPD. Second important point to me is that it does a nice job of identifying the outliers. Okay? These guys that are out here on the ends. Okay? Again, we have this for all of the traits. Looks very much the same. Okay? Does a nice job of accounting for all of the variation and identifies the outliers very well. Looks very nice for birth weight, carcass, really all of the traits. Again, we can share that information with you as time permits. So I want to take that set of bulls just a little bit further and go down through all the traits: calving ease direct, birth weight, weaning weight, calving ease maternal, milk, carcass weight, fat, ribeye area, and marbling. This is a percentage variation. You see that they all perform reasonably nicely, not all exactly the same, ranging from 43% up to around 80% for those traits in this sample of 60 bulls. Okay, so again, I'm going to reemphasize this isn't all the Angus bulls that are progeny proven in the breed, but it's certainly a sample that I think is interesting. The other thing that it does, clearly there's another genomic test that's been utilized out there and will continue to be. Just it relates, these bulls also had that profile as well. Okay, so you get an idea with small samples, some side-by-side things. Okay, so you can see those as well. Pretty interesting stuff, I think.